All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to wasmCloud Wednesday for Wednesday, August 27th. We've got a pretty fun agenda today, maybe a little short, but it'll be fun nonetheless. I have a quick item where I just wanted to show off and uh, point to one of the blogs that's going to land on the wasmCloud site. Maybe it already has here in the next like 2 minutes or so, which is pretty exciting about Wash's plugin system. And then one of our maintainers, Aditya, is here on the call. I want to talk through some questions, considerations on one of the bigger roadmap items that we have for what quarter are we in? Quarter three. Quarter three. So I'll go ahead and share just real quick and talk about the blog that I want to point people at for fun things, and then we can move on to discussion. So this blog is merging into the wasmCloud site right now. So you may not see it yet, but it'll be here very soon around the Wash CLI's new plugin system. Now, we had a plugin system, or we have a plugin system in Wash right now, but it's really not, it allows you to run components, but it really doesn't do the comprehensive integration into the CLI flow like the Wash plugin system that we introduce in this blog. Now, people say, I don't know who they are, but they are people. They say that Wasm components are the last plugin model that you'll ever need. We fully subscribe to that, and so much so that we have taken a stance that in our Wasm shell CLI, we should be able to drive a really nice WebAssembly component development and running experience, and then provide any wasmCloud specific functionality or just general extensions as Wasm plugins. So in this plugin system, it's fairly similar to the way things work today, where you can install and uninstall and list your plugins. But there are really three main categories of plugins that Wash supports. There are hooks. Hooks are essentially you can run them before or after any command in the Wash CLI lifecycle. So maybe before you generate a new project from a template, you want to insert a new template into that list of available things, and that's what your plugin does. Or maybe before you push to an OCI registry, you want to attach additional annotations, or before you run your dev process, you want to launch a container that you can export open telemetry metrics to. These are all the kinds of possibilities that we were thinking of when we developed the hook system. Um, and there is actually one special kind of hook, which I even put in its own category, called dev register. This is something where you can have a plugin implement custom interfaces so that you don't need to run capability providers, you don't need to run external processes. You can actually have these custom dev plugins that implement interfaces so that you can do the hot reload loop without needing to really hot reload anything other than your component. So one example of this is the blobstore file system plugin. This is in the Wash tree, but it implements WASI blobstore in terms of WASI file system. So now, if you install that plugin, you can use WASI blobstore, even though Wash knows nothing about that interface at all, and it will send all of those invocations to the plugin that will store those blobs on your file system. So there's a lot of possibilities there in the hook infrastructure. So I look forward to doing pretty much all the WASI Cloud plugins. I don't see when we can use like WASI key value and WASI logging, putting that out to the file system. And then you can do wash dev. You don't need any providers. It's a really slick system, if I do say so myself. And then the last category of plugins are top level commands. So you can register your own essentially WASI CLI style commands that will be present in the Wash help text. You can execute all of your own logic. It runs in the secure component sandbox, but you have the ability to ask things like, hey, can I read this file from the file system? Can I execute this command? All in all, I think that there are still maybe some things to figure out, some changes that we may want to do to the wasmCloud Wash interface, but it's in a really good place right now, and I think that I think that really all we can do is start to develop more and more plugins and see if it falls short anywhere, and then update the WIT interface. So now is a really great time. If you haven't taken a look at the Wash project, go take a look at the repo, wasmCloud/wash, and see what you think. I've been really impressed with folks coming in and taking a lot of the good first issues already. So kudos to everybody who's been doing that. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions on the plugin system? I know that was just kind of a high level overview, and hey, if you're looking for light reading, go read the blog. But happy to answer any questions here too. Alrighty. Well, then I think the only other thing that I had on the agenda, which I figure for this discussion may take some time, we'll see. But Aditya, you've been doing some thinking on one of the bigger issues that we have on the Wasm Cloud roadmap, and I'll just share it really briefly, and then I'll let you drive if this is something that you want to do, or I can keep it up. It's up to you. But really, what this comes down to from our quarter 3 road mapping planning is that the idea of the abstraction of an application, like the way that we run a Wasm Cloud application today, like a collection of components and providers, isn't it's not exactly right. It works for the smaller app. It works for like baby's first Wasm Cloud, like the first time you deploy an application. But then as soon as you start getting into the more complicated as soon as you start getting into the more complicated bits of using one HTTP server provider to serve an endpoint for many components, and you don't want to duplicate that, but you also want to be able to manage those components life cycles separately. It really doesn't quite describe the right unit of deployment. Obviously, it's okay, and we've been working with it for a while. We also have the idea of a shared application or a shared component or provider in Wadom itself. Um, but really, this is all just kind of a call out that like the app abstraction isn't exactly right, and there's got to be something better for us to do. So I left this somewhat intentionally open. We have, I think I have some high level ideas, but Aditya, you've kind of come in over the past couple of days and given some thoughts, considerations. Would you like to talk through some of the things that you laid out here and what your thoughts were?
Yeah, definitely. So, just as a disclaimer, I'm totally ad hocing this. I have not prepared in any sense, but yeah, I'll just go through some of my thoughts. I'll just share my screen here.
And double thank you to Aditya for just like being willing to off the cuff this. Yeah, really appreciate it.
Yeah, you have to be ready some days. Is it visible?
Yep. Yep, I can see it.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
That's good.
Uh, yeah. So currently, I'm sure we are all aware that the host follows a multi uh, multi app setup with uh, duplicates of all the providers, as Brooks mentioned. So the problem I had understanding was how are we going to limit or decrease the number of, or I'd say, how would we increase the density of providers per se and handle the multiplexing that surrounds it? Because currently, providers mainly follow a, let's say, I serve one component. They assume they serve one component, or at least a part of the application, except for the HTTP server, which has the path based routing. So my primary concern with the new model that we are proposing is how would we handle the multiplexing with the other providers. Let's say, for example, we have the messaging queues and yeah, the blobstore. All of them have different differentiators like streams or subjects, not subjects. And yeah, that would be uh, an interesting thing to look forward to. How we're going to keep the number of providers at a minimum while also managing multiple different components and their ingress and their egress, and yeah, handle that. Yeah, that's it for now. I'll elaborate more, but any questions so far?
Yeah, Adia, just quick question. I see you mentioned HTTP in here. Are you I tend to just call it HTTP, but is this talking about like HTTP server or HTTP client in terms of serving like more than one?
So I'm talking about the HTTP server where there is like a clunky way of currently handling having a shared provider with HTTP server where you have the different paths that route to different that route to the different handle functions. Like say for example, /foo is handled by another component, /bar is handled by another component. I'm speaking from that point of view.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't sorry, I don't think I have any other questions. I just want to disambiguate there. If you had more there.
Yeah. So I mean, other than that, are we going to change the way the providers are written, or are we going to keep an higher abstraction on top of the providers so that people don't have to change the way the providers are written in a way that multiplexes with being a shared provider, or uh, yeah, are we going to change the way providers are written?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that this somewhat relates to a different where is it? This relates to one of the other issues that we have on the roadmap, which I'll just share briefly so that folks are aware, and then drop it here in the chat. But this is something that Luke Ark and I have been brainstorming around and finding solutions, but transitioning the idea of a capability provider to be from something that's like WasmCloud specific, like you're using the WasmCloud provider SDK, you're specifically writing this provider, you're making all the decisions about like how am I configured? Am I getting configuration for this one component, or am I getting configuration for a bunch of different components? And uh, at a high level, what I would love to do basically is just drop the provider SDK entirely. And I know that sounds super drastic, and I don't mean just like rim wrapping it and then getting rid of everything. But what I'd really love to do is lean more into wRPC as the way that these providers are written. Because right now, when you write a provider, there's the step where you have to deal with like running the provider, connecting to Wasm Cloud, making sure that you handle this initial list of links and everything. But the handling an invocation like key value atomic increment, that's a really easy like you basically implement the function for like when I get an invocation for atomic increment, what do I do? So twofold, I would love to be able to have these providers be something where you're only really interested in that contract. Like I get an invocation for atomic increment. Here's the configuration that I need to use, like what database to connect to, or what thing to invoke from here, and then you do it. It's almost like how you implement a component today, where you just say, I'm exporting these interfaces. I'm going to implement them, and then that's it. Aditya, I don't know if that's super broad and doesn't help. But I think only in the name of like making these providers a little simpler to reason about. Um, so not having the whole capability provider SDK because it's just simpler to write them, would be good. And it also lets you run capability providers, I guess how you'd like to, like in a world where there was a wRPC bindgen for Java, you could write a little Java process or class or something that implements an interface. And then if it can connect to NATs, then wasmCloud can connect to it. So big ideas, but I think concrete next step is just to lean a little bit more into wRPC there.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It definitely gives me a lot of to brainstorm about. I had one question. When we talk about increasing the density of Wasm Cloud application, we also need to think about how we are going to maintain the availability that comes with having a shared provider. The doubt I had is, would the providers be able to keep their availability as they are now, or would there be a sort of race conditions with multiple components trying to make use of the capability providers? Uh, yeah.
Yeah, it's all good questions. I think at a bird's eye view, when we talk about increasing density, I'm thinking of things like if you deploy two different applications and both of them are trying to talk to Redis, and because they're separate applications, both of them need their own separate like Redis provider process, which is like you invoke and then it talks to the database itself. Um, I think if we can merge these two providers, into one Redis provider, then that would make the availability more predictable. It does introduce a scenario where if you want to upgrade a single provider, that's serving multiple components, then you need to have a way to do that such that you don't affect the other component workloads as you update your configuration. So I think really having an ability to update config without tearing down the provider and like starting a new one, which isn't really what we do now anyways. That's the most important thing for availability. If you're running in this multi-tenant mode, then you just have to be aware that some parts of the infrastructure aren't just like aren't our singletons aren't serving just one thing. So there's more. Yeah, you have to keep that in mind. But I don't see it being harder than today, I guess.
Yeah. Thanks for answering that. Yeah. That'll be all from my side. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Sorry, I've been just talking the whole time. Do folks have any other question or any questions for Aditya here? Bailey, you've been putting a lot in the chat too around WASI P3. Where does that kind of come into this mix?
Well, I guess all I'm trying to say there is what we previously have always had to rely on providers, because in a lot of ways it was like our great escape hatch to, hey, this stuff doesn't compile to WASM, so let's have a way to extend what the host is able to do with native code. And that's why we have providers. I really believe with WASI P3, we're going to really start seeing components take over many, many more of the use cases that we were previously using providers for. And our next version of the host, I know you've been working on that, and it includes this concept of a service, so something that's long running and stateful, like a provider, but with components. So just want to, throw that out there that it's also, we can really be more, I guess, targeted with what we're trying to solve for what we do, leaning more into wRPC and with these native extensions. Because then we can think about, well, okay, now of the subset of components, what exactly are they not able to do here? What are we actually missing?
Yeah. Okay, Bailey. So I think this kind of goes back to Adia's question around like availability, like how this changes the density model. Um, so if we had a component that could do all the things that providers do, I was talking about, you know, Redis imagining like a WASI key value implementer. So maybe if there's any like uh any edge cases with like resources or what have you, if we could skip over those, but just something that's understandable. How does that change like the density model, like the how applications I mean, when I say applications, I don't mean like Wadham applications, but like a bundle of components that you deploy together to like make an application. Like how does that change the whole Wasm Cloud world?
It's a huge game changer. Yeah. I mean, think about it this way. WebAssembly components are basically blocks that you're able to pack together, aka bin pack, in a single WebAssembly host. When you're talking about some other native process to run that safely, securely, package it, all the yada yada yada, you're putting that thing in a container, right? And then you're calling out to it. I know we also allow our hosts today to kind of like start processes and kind of like manage it external to the host. And so maybe it's just a process running on the side. So it's still not bin packed like it would be in a WebAssembly runtime. Um, because we're, stacking those memories together as part of a giant allocation slab of part of the whole WebAssembly runtime. That's what gives you all that bin packing. Making it possible for you to define all of these different workloads independent of each other so we can spread it out and distribute the work means we also are able to co-locate workloads that depend on that specific type of service tightly packed together. And we can do a ton of different types of optimizations when you start talking about being able to do dynamic linking within the WebAssembly runtime. So like within WASM time, being smart about, oh, hey, I'm talking to this thing and I'm linked to it. And when you do that in terms that WASM time is able to understand, you can do even more specialized optimizations like Cranelift and compilation type optimizations to say, oh, I see these same instructions are doing the same thing. I can ahead of time compile basically these two components together to trampoline really efficiently between each other, which is exciting.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, we don't have any trampolines in Wasm Cloud today. So if we could add trampolines, then that would at least make things more fun.
This is true. The dad jokes. Yeah. Today, right, I'm just gonna answer it technically. If we compose a component together, you get that advantage. But if we could do smart things as part of the like as a platform and say, oh, did you mean to do that? Did you want them to be best friends and be composed together, aka be linked together? We'll do that for you.
Okay. Um, do folks have any other questions or things that they wanted to kind of add on here? Got I think a bit of a summary or whatever, what I'm thinking. Okay. Yeah, I guess just to wrap this one up, Aditya, I'm sure you have other thoughts that, maybe you compile or stew on over the next couple days or whatever. Or you made everything horrible and more complicated, which is also possible. Um, I really think that um we should keep we should keep brainstorming here. My the issue title on this support configuring a Wasm Cloud host with shared capability providers, I think is maybe a little misleading now based on what we know. Not that that may not, not that that isn't the right thing to do, but just that I think a lot of things are going to change. Like if we can push forward the changes on capability providers being a little more in on wRPC or components filling the role of what capability providers can do, then it certainly changes this like requirement of this world that components are basically only able to access like a really small amount of capabilities without this like separate process running. And that's really the biggest problem with our provider model today is that components are so much denser than running a separate process that's opening ports and all the things. So it's really hard to scale those at the same rate. Um, so yeah, maybe some more research and thoughts here needed. Hmm.
Well, I'm gonna keep researching and doing my thing. Not sure I'm gonna factor that in with a lot of work that's going on with me, but yeah, I'll keep thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you so much, Aditya. And I know you've been kind of poking around like the whole WASM space lately. So any other thoughts or questions there are really welcome. So um yeah, I think that that's actually all that we had on the agenda then, at least for today. Welcome everybody who came in maybe a little bit later. Colin, enjoying the outdoors, love it. Good to see you, Ahmed, Igor, and Deepak. Are there other issues that we should talk about or other discussion items from the broader Wasm ecosystem, things happening in wasmCloud that we should throw on for today?
I just
Oh,
face an issue that I cannot build component on latest Golang version. And yeah, maybe let's discuss it after this call.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Igor, this is this related to like Go 1.25 coming
Yep,
out
yep.
just now? Okay. Um yeah. Bailey, you and I were like just talking about this and like we bumped something else to 1.25. I'm not I forget how this works because I've only done a couple like Go minor updates in life. But yeah, do we need to update our component SDK and like examples and stuff to list 1.25 or like in the Go mod or should that just kind of work? Is this a TinyGo problem? Uh, I'll just keep asking questions until somebody interrupts me. Uh, Either way, maybe we just need to take a look at that and see what the issue is.
I
Igor, you
did
got
see
this?
TinyGo create a release, so I would assume that maybe that needs to be, you need to have at least that release.
Okay. Yeah, Igor, are you on the latest version of Go,
Golang.
Go, all the things?
Not TinyGo, I guess. Just Go. I update Just Go and cannot compile. Yep.
Oh, okay. Um, uh, yeah, Igor, let's follow up on this one. Yeah, it looks like maybe that's a good place to start updating TinyGo to 1 dot or sorry 0.39. But if you still hit that issue, then we can follow up. I'll make sure in the new wash to add a little like doctor thing to check and make sure if you're on 1.25, you got to be on the new TinyGo too. Bailey, you had a thing?
Oh, I also wrote a blog post. And also thank you, Eric, if you're here, for helping me write that as well. I mostly talked about all of this in the community call that's linked actually at the top of this post, so I'm not gonna dive through it, but if you weren't in that community call, and you rather read rather than listen, there's a blog post for you. Or click that link and get more detail. I guess the only other thing that's worth giving a shout out is that You know, I've been really into what Brooks has been cooking over on the Wash side on the next version of Wash, and how that gives you, you know, basically plugins, aka Wasm components, all the way down. And so we now, as part of wasmCloud, have a action that's in the GitHub Marketplace, that makes it possible for you to easily get going with this new version of Wash, is what it actually points directly at. And so to consume it, you need to point it at the release candidate version, or don't pass in a version by default. We already specified the release candidates that Brooks has been cutting for the next version of Wash. So yeah, would love your feedback. I really want to add something to it that enumerates like all the plugins you need to have installed for that action. Like that's something I haven't done yet on setup wash action, but that would be really good to have.
Yeah, Bailey, I can see, I know that we're going to be essentially integrating Wash into the like Rust monorepo that we have. I think we're going to be making quite a bit of changes there. So I really look forward to using some of these reusable actions just to make it easy, like run workflow, Wash installed. Boom, I can do all my testing. Marketplace.
Yeah, we're there. We're in it. Yeah. So give it a shot. Give us feedback. Post in the wasmCloud Slack if it's working for you. And yeah, look at our cute little logo. That was probably the hardest thing about this whole setup, was trying to decide which one we can use out of the available feather icons, because if you're not a GitHub like partner, you're not able to pass in your own custom SVG. Boo. So anyways, I'm happy with how it looks. It's cute. The end.
Love it. Colin, you came off mute, but maybe that was just to say hi. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Or not to say hi.
I was mentioned.
All right, y'all. Well, I think that's probably it for today. Give everybody a little bit of time back. Go enjoy all of your Wasm Cloud Wednesday. And next week, normal week, holiday on Monday. We'll see you all next week on Wednesday for Wasm Cloud Wednesday. Good to see you, everybody.